Alright, trying to do a quick review of Dexter Resurrection. Long story short, it's really good. Go and watch it. So was Original Sin. I think Dexter is like back. They have got their mojo back. These are vastly better than New Blood, and better than some of the original run as well. I know I disagree with people about which seasons of original Dexter were good or not, but there were definitely dips, and these are back. It's back. I have to say, like, I feel like New Blood was kind of their like woke era where they felt guilty about trying to make us like a serial killer, even though we all know it's a fucked up situation. We don't need to be beat around the head about have that point made to us. But yeah, I feel like they felt guilt in New Blood. They wanted to bring him back, but they wanted to bring him back so he could have real consequences and not just get away with it and end up dying and end up being like, this is what happens when you're like that. And it's like, that's not fun. This is fun. And leading into this is fun. So, yeah, I think they've done a really good job bringing Dexter back. With this, where do I even start trying to go into more depth? I mean, I was watching with a friend at the time, and I, he'd already seen it, but was re-watching it so that we were trying to watch the same episode on the same nights, and then talking about it afterwards. And, there were a few moments where I was like, sure. But it's mainly like nitpicking. So in the first episode, I was trying to just watch it straight through without pausing or anything. But this is the moment that made me pause. Yeah, sorry, this is kind of a spoiler, but it's the first episode, so not a big deal. But I'm just saying, this is a leg that has come out of a garbage bag that has been in a garbage truck. Do American garbage trucks not crush everything as they go in to save space? And yet, like, not only is the leg, like, looking like it's just been cut, these bags are all pristine as well. And I'm just like, that's not, like, we should see some squashiness. But I know the bags need to be relatively pristine and all together in the right spot so that the girl cop, who is heavily implied to be autistic, can go through and see all the similarities and figure out what's going on and find the whole body. Like, I get that, but I don't know, if the writers were smarter, maybe there would have been another way to do that. Girl cop, by the way, she grew on me by the end of it. In the beginning, I'm like, this is too convenient. She's got plot armor, magic, being able to spot everything and whatever. But she's actually pretty funny. And she gets funnier as it goes on, and, I guess, like, they do build up her story as well. But yeah, just things like, when she's called, oh, you called at this exact time, 9:03. Not just 9:03. And when someone on the phone is, like, saying, what? And she's like, oh, is this connection bad? I enjoyed that. She ends up being quite a lot of fun, and she ends up, like, in the beginning, you're supposed to not like her because she's on the other side of the people you're rooting for. But by the end, like, she's fun and, seems like a good person by the end. But there are things like, a lot of the cop work, sorry, I am nitpicking even though this is really good. A lot of the cop work was a bit dodgy, I gotta say. Because particularly with Harrison, multiple times different cops are interrogating him and feeding him information about what they suspect him to have done. And he is, more spoilers, he's homeless, he's young, he has all these risk factors, and if you feed a witness all this stuff and interrogate them for long enough, sometimes they just start admitting to it and end up falsely convicted because, they're tired, or if they are innocent, sometimes they think if they, like, if the cop says, oh, we have evidence, they'll just confess because they're like, oh, well, the evidence will show I didn't actually do it, but then the evidence doesn't actually get looked at, or maybe it didn't even exist and they're just relying on the confession. So it's really bad police work to tell a witness, oh, we found this stuff and it was, the weapon must have been this toilet thing. You don't tell the person you're interrogating that, because if he did confess and, like, we know all this isn't the 70s or whatever where it was easier to manipulate people, if it went to court, that, you know, they would find out that the witness was led on and it would be thrown out and you don't get your killer that way. Yeah, so stuff like that. And it's not just the cops and like the lady cop, right? She's supposed to be big on the rules and she like that would be a rule. And she's breaking it very obviously and trying to do like the good cop empathy thing, but no. What about the rules? Are you only following the rules when it's convenient to the plot? So that annoyed me a little bit. I should say more good things about it. I'll get to more good things later. I'm on the rant part of this and I'm running out of time. So yeah, the police work. Also, like, Batista gets involved and he also questions Harrison and feeds him all this stuff. Just like, you know, he assumes Harrison knows, but again, he's putting ideas in the kid's head and just like, you know, the writers have really struggled to remove what they know from what the characters should know, and that Batista is immediately suspicious of Harrison is a bit weird. Like there's not a whole lot of logic I felt behind it, and just pressuring this poor kid who there's no evidence anywhere that he's done anything because Dexter's old girlfriend seems to have taken care of that. Like there's just no evidence that he really knew anything, and to just do, you know, treat a kid that way is really nasty. And you know, Batista Dexter should have taken an AVO out on him. Holy shit. I don't know how it's done. Like a restraining order. Is that what it is in America? Yeah, no, some of the police work was just bizarre. I get it for the drama, but that threw me off. No, good. Oh, while I'm on the nitpicking, also, I don't know if the writers understand tech. They certainly don't watch as many paranoid tech YouTubers as I do. But like the moment that Dexter leaves Ice Mountain from New Blood, you know, he should have thrown out his phone. We don't see that, but he could be tracked if he had his phone on him. And then, you know, phones come up later again because the big bad gives Dexter a phone to communicate with, sorry, more spoilers, other serial killers. And so they're all communicating on these phones, and it's like, okay, so it's secure within their circle, but how does Dexter know that the big bad guy isn't monitoring everything he does on his phone? Texting the girl, whether he calls anyone, trying to meet up, like, you know, and are there any suspicious disappearances after this has happened? And also, like, I wouldn't even talk around a phone like that. Because, like, does it have monitoring software? Is it secretly recording just everything? You don't know. Why would you trust it? And, you know, there's a point also where Dexter, like, you know, he's got a job as a Uber driver or whatever, or your car, which is obviously meant to be Uber. They've just taken out a few letters. Yeah, he turns up to one of these meetings with the serial killers in the same car, as far as I can tell. I'm like, why would you do that? Especially when Blondie is suspicious of him already. Like, she could take down the number plate, find out where he's actually staying, because by then they figured out he's not staying in this regular place, I think, and you know, use that information to find out what's actually going on. It's like, why would you take that risk, Dexter? Especially, you know, we've already seen earlier in the season that Batista's worked out, you know, used the DMV records or whatever to find what happened to Dexter's old vehicle. Yeah. But speaking of vehicles, some of the funny stuff, like the fucking alien mobile, oh, that was fun. And then his new friend's reaction to that before he goes and buys the new car. There's a lot of fun humor in this. They do the humor in this really well. There's a lot of, like, juxtapositions. Like when Batista and the Ice Mountain cop, they're talking about how miserable he must be, and then it cuts to Dexter eating, like, these big cheeseburgers and having such a great meal and all that. That was a lot of fun. Just like, and you know, Dexter and Harrison go to a funeral, and Dexter's like, oh, they're gonna be super sad, and then everyone inside is happy. I enjoyed a lot of the humor in that. Oh, no, I have one more thing about tracking, though, because, Batista leaving his bloody, earpods or whatever in Dexter's car, alright? I mean, this is supposed to be 2025. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be right after New Blood. I don't know when that was. Maybe this hasn't caught up to the present, but I don't know. I feel like they're being flexible with timelines. But for many years now, uh if an like, you know, one of those devices is traveling, an unknown device is traveling near your phone in the same direction, it'll now send you an alert to say, hey, you're being you know, there's an unrecognized device nearby. And I think it even works cross platform, so like Apple and Android, they will let each other know. I think you need to leave Blu-ray on, but like, and then also if you have these not Blu-ray, Bluetooth, and if you have a Bluetooth device, like, you know, you can go through and see all the Bluetooth devices near you. And I think Angel's one might have even been called, like, his Angel's earpods or something. If Dexter had just opened the fucking Bluetooth thing every now and then, especially after being in the car with the guy who now hates him, wouldn't you go through and just check that he hasn't left any of his shit with you? I don't know, I'm just like, they don't know how any of this works. And in New Blood, there were a few tech things that annoyed me as well. Nitpicking. Anyway, no, the sense of humor, it's funny at times, but serious when it needs to be. It's also hard to watch at times because, like, they just get in these ridiculous situations, and so it's like, it was actually quite anxiety provoking to watch it. Like, I guess they're doing tension, right? And like, what's gonna happen next? But I think what made it harder for me is it's like they keep getting into these situations instead of things are happening and they have to solve it. It's like, no, they've done it to themselves. And so I don't recall old Dexter being quite this stressful. But yeah, that's a thing. You can't stop watching it. And there are good payoffs in between. Some of the most fun stuff is like when Dexter goes into killer mode, or when he's out of his head as well. Like, even just talking to Harrison outside his head when they first meet up, and he's so fucking creepy once he's outside his head and just acting like him. And then anytime he's like drops that mask as well, and you're just like, holy shit, he's actually fucking scary. There's that, and also, I think the whole Bay Harbor Butcher thing, that's finally, like, it feels right now. When season 2 came out and the Bay Harbor Butcher name first came up, I was a bit like, it feels weird. I don't know, like, somehow it doesn't sound right. You know, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. I guess because, you know, like, the killer of serial killers, and you're calling Bay Harbor Butcher, it just didn't fit. But with this, it finally fits. I mean, it's kind of become a legend within the universe. But also, like, you know, more spoilers, he's killing other serial killers, and the first one to realize who he is had been super blasé up until that point, and then the moment he knows who Dexter really is, there's that fear thing kicks in, and it's like, oh, the Bay Harbor Butcher is actually elevated at that point, and Dexter himself seems to accept it more. And there's a lot of fun temptation moments as well, which I'm big on. Like, it's enough that he already has this double life, but then to also have the temptation to go against what he now has values. He's admitted to himself he has values. Which, you know, even came up in this a bit. And to be tempted, like, you know, on the one hand, he wants to stop other serial killers, but on the other hand, he really wants to just kill a lot. And sort of, you know, if someone's trying to help him do both, but in the shadiest way. I don't know, like, there's so much I could say about this, and I'm running out of fucking time. Because I tried to go in more detail before, and it was just too much. Yeah, no, it's fun. And I think they're back on track. You know, the very end, they're implying that they're, like, trying to listen to their audience. Like, what do the fans actually want? As opposed to New Blood, where it felt like they were trying to, you know, forgive themselves for making the series at all. It's like, no, what do the fans actually want? Which is super rare with, like, Hollywood these days. You know, this is really cool. I like what they're doing. I think they're back onto it. My nitpicking aside, like, that stuff does distract me a little bit. I don't know. I gotta look past that because the rest are like, it is good to watch. It is good fun to watch. And I guess it's a little bit harder for me to say what I like without giving too much away. There are some brutal moments, and like he's shown to be quite intelligent. His manipulative skills, I think, are made a lot more obvious, especially with Angel around, able to comment on some of that. Um Angel's situation was weird though. I gotta say, like they brought him back so that they could have some kind of connection to the old series like that, but and maybe some closure. But I felt his part of it felt the most forced to me. Although I think they handled the ending of that little saga pretty well, because how else would it go? But just because like Batista, I don't think he was thinking about the Dexter situation that much. Yeah, I suppose we only had one season to deal with it in the old series, but yeah, I don't know. How was he thinking about it enough for that to be a thing? Anyway, I need to stop this because my brain is like there's so much more I could say about it. And like this too. I think Dexter is back basically. So you should watch it. Both of these were really good. And like the way that they came back from New Blood as well. Clever. Well done. I hope that the next time they try and end Dexter, they do a better job of it than, third time lucky. Will they actually get it right? I think it's rare to like bring something back and be this good. New York is interesting. NYPD will knock your punk ass down. I was waiting to see, like, he does meet the cop, and he does give her some hints with, like, blood spatter and all that. And so I was thinking, like, are the cops gonna be like, hey, you know this stuff, can you join us and help out? And then he becomes part of, like, he could be, instead of Miami forensics, New York forensics. I don't know if they plan to ever do that, but, it just made me think like that's a possibility if they recognize his skill and he can pick up that would be kind of interesting. But I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to. I don't know, it was just such a good way for him to find victims. Like that was kind of the point. And sure, like he ends up with a list at the end, but that's only gonna go so far. And so at some point he's gonna want access to cop stuff again, right? I don't know, and New York is such a big city. Like the actor himself before like original Dexter was in New York and would practice stalking people, which it turned out to be quite easy because it's such a big, busy city. Yeah. Oh no, I need to shut up because my brain is struggling and I need to get to bed because tomorrow could be busy. Yeah. And Harrison was much more likable in this compared to New Blood as well. I guess like fleshing out his story is less annoying, less whiny, less of a liability, I think. The family that Dexter lives with, they were fun. Who are any other characters? I think there's some that'll come back later. With the other killers featured, Red was an interesting one. I know I said I would shut up, but now I've thought of it again. I really should write notes, but then I would never get onto this. It's taking me this long. Red, interesting. I know that they did the dark passenger thing as a joke. I like that like they're kind of doing that. They recognize their own things and yeah, make it kind of funny and still having a sense of humor in what would otherwise be quite dark. Yeah, the way they introduce him, he's meant to look like Dexter, so you think that he's going to be, but his nose was different. So, my friend, even though he'd already watched it before, he forgot that it wasn't Dexter when that guy gets introduced. But yeah, I was suspicious, so the nose tipped me off. But that was kind of a fun way to reintroduce things. A little bit concerned about Dexter's disposal method, but it was kind of like they had to do it that way so he could get the thumb for the thumbprint, I guess. That was kind of funny. The tattoo guy, yeah, that's the first one. He reveals who he really is too. That's a lot of fun. The killer girl who tries to like seduce him, or like they hit it off. I was just suspicious of her the whole time though, because, you know, she kills perverts, or that's her reputation anyway. She kills perverts, and she's coming on to Dexter, and like, wouldn't you be concerned that she's just trying to put it on so that you'll make a wrong move and then she has an excuse to kill you? Like, why would you trust her at all? And he gets out of the situation just because he's oblivious and thinking about other things. But yeah, I just don't trust her at all. Maybe she was legit interested in him, or maybe she was just looking for an excuse. I thought it was a little bit convenient how that situation gets sorted out. I thought the watch was going to be used for another thing. It's not really that important, but yeah, I guess they did set it up. It's fine. And then she gets Epsteined. Okay. I thought Ponytail Guy would be the next one to go, but because, you know, we didn't know much about the quiet little nerd, but then they did a whole episode about that. That was fun. Dexter being smart with the drinks. Fun. Especially because all these people keep thinking they're smarter than Dexter, and then he's like, actually. And I think we like to see that. We don't want to see him fuck up too much. I think one of the problems with New Blood is like he's so out of practice. And it's just like, this isn't the super smart guy we're used to. He's just like constantly scrambling, you know, off his game. It was less fun, whereas smart Dexter is more fun. But yeah, the first twin, okay, one of the conveniences was with the twins. He didn't know they were twins, and with the blood slide, he puts the blood a little bit to the side, so then conveniently the second twin can go next on the same slide. I'm like, that was a little bit, he's never that imprecise, so that was a bit of plot bullshit. But yeah, when he takes out the second one, that is a lot of fun, because the absolute manipulation to set the guy off, to set up the situation and kill him in plain sight, holy shit. Ponytail Guy was actually the only one to have, like, to show the tech intelligence when he throws the phone out the window later on. That was smart. But yeah, unfortunately the writers kind of only thought of that at the last minute, which annoyed me a little bit. Blondie was an interesting one, because they make her out to be super smart in the beginning, or at least smart enough. You know, she finds Red in 3 weeks, and Dexter's like, oh, I did it in 3 days. And I joked to my friend, if it was the Pretender, because, you know, I made those videos about that, the Pretender would find Red in 3 hours. However, he would have spent 3 months earlier just living in a car, getting into character. Anyway, I still think the Pretender is smarter than Dexter, but at least Dexter's come back in this. But yeah, and you know, she has all these resources and whatever, but like the whole thing about Epsteining the girl, she acts like she can't get access, and then I think that was just to make Leon look more like a bad guy, because then she comes back and has a solution anyway, and it's like, what was the problem then? Yeah, so that was a little bit inconvenient, but they made her more likable by the end as well. But yeah, I do think, like, you know, she could have run Dexter's number plate. I don't know, there's a few things there. Ultimately, I think she was a good character. With Leon, I wasn't particularly pleased to see him turn up being short stuff. Just because that actor, like, he's been against, little people doing, like, dwarf roles, even though that's how he got his start, I think. You know, and is sort of against that. He's against those kinds of stereotypes, but, like, that's how a lot of them get, you know, stand a chance at getting to the position that he's in. They don't have a problem with it. Why should he be all like, you can't do this? Now that he's successful, it's okay for him to say, oh, you can't do that anymore. A bit hypocritical. And then the whole joke, like, oh, the big boss turns out to be short stuff. It's been done before. It's like, it's a thing. You know, Nightmare in Silver, Doctor Who, I really like that episode, and if you know the episode, you know why. You know, the Emperor of the Galaxy or whatever, who's mysteriously gone missing, like, you know, there's a statue of him being tall and all that, but it turns out he's short stuff. and it's supposed to be this like, ooh, big powerful person turns out to be tiny. It's like the Wizard of Oz. The big giant scary wizardy face turns out to just be a guy behind the curtain. It's that kind of thing, but done with height. And it's like, is that not also a stereotype? It's not as progressive as you think. So why not let actors, little people actors who want to do little people stereotype roles, let them do it. Like, why deny that group of people work, and opportunities and all that just because you're not okay with it? It should be yes, and also these roles that are less stereotypical, at least as far as he thinks. And I don't know, my friend thought he's a really good actor. I guess I feel like his face is a little bit overly expressive, like cartoonishly expressive, but hey, I guess little person, big personality. But yeah, his character, I mean, sus from the start because he's inviting serial killers over. The way that they built up his story, I was sort of thinking like, what if maybe he is a killer himself and has a thing for drunk drivers, assuming the story he tells earlier is true. But it turns out no. Okay, that was kind of like, they were making him out to be a lot darker, but he hasn't had the guts to go all the way. But he's had, like, he does everything else. He's super manipulative and, putting on the nice image, but manipulating people behind the scenes, and he does literally everything else except actually kill people. Yeah. Anything else about characters? I don't know. Batista was... When Harrison tells Batista, you sound like a conspiracy theorist, I was like, yes. That is exactly how he sounds. Because the cop work was just not done well. And yeah, I feel like he was the most pointless. He's just there for the fan service. Yeah. Later on there's that university girl who turns up. Don't really have enough opinions at this stage. The other girl with the kid. I don't know. I don't care about the relationship stuff, really. It just gave Dexter an opportunity to scare someone instead of killing them, and also to give Batista that moment where he's like, look, I've been tracking him, and there's no tracker because he's stepped on it already. I think that's everything. I hope that's everything. Do I need to just... Oh, also with this, there are special features. I'll show you my favorite one from behind the scenes.
Because you just gotta balance it. If we are murdering.
Okay, him being short is funny. Like, I'm not a huge fan of his politics. But yeah, he's just so tiny and he's like and the fact that he fit in so few bags. Speaking of bags though, at the end, did Dexter throw the body into like the middle of New York? I think that shot was just so they could have the Statue of Liberty, but I'm like, that's gonna get found by some enthusiastic divers. Like, haven't we learned anything from the Bay Harbor Butcher saga? Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that's just... I've just got to tell myself it's just for the look. Plot convenience is one thing. This was not plot convenience, it's just because they wanted to have New York in the background. Calm down, me. We've gone well over time. Oh dear. If I just look quickly through this, is there anything else? Yeah, I don't know. Like, we had this chat, and I've got screenshots of this chat, and I like how the cop girl, she just shows a room full of like fresh out of high school kids, all this gory stuff, and she's just oblivious to all that. That was a lot of fun. There are a lot of fun moments. Yeah. I should just leave it there, really. Like, there's 40 screenshots of things that we talked about. It's just too much. Oh my god. So, yeah. I thought it was good. Both of these were good. This was like, the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, things do fit into place. There's some bits is like, I'm not sure, but no, actually it all fits quite well, and there's some interesting stuff, and I told myself I would shut up. Ah! Okay. Bye.